I don't particularly like to start this morning is because it means that there's going to be an end. And I really don't ever want to stop. There's something here. And wherever you go, that something is going to be. And it says, I am infinite. Don't stop here. There are new horizons beyond every horizon. The secret of life is to walk into the unknown, not to stay in the known. If you stop in the known, you lose reality. Life is an adventure into the unknown without end. We didn't plan this to be the Columbus Day weekend because of Columbus. We did it because it gave you a Monday, an extra day, an extra chance to be together on a long weekend. But the idea of discovery inherent in the work of Columbus is the idea of living the infinite way. If you were Rembrandt or Picasso, when you finally put your signature on a painting, that meant you were satisfied. This I have done. This expresses my idea. It expresses the fullness of what I had in mind. I'll now sign it Picasso, or Rembrandt van Rijn, or Botticelli. Whatever the name that goes on that painting, that signature becomes very meaningful. It's the guarantee of a certain style, a certain insight, a certain technique. Many people just look for the name rather than the subject. I want a Botticelli. I want a Rembrandt. Because whatever he did, I know has quality. It has a certain something I want. The signature is the guarantee. And God has a signature too. To learn how to find the signature of God in all things is part of the intuition that you develop. Sort of like a mariner at sea. You begin to feel the nature of the water and the wind. Recently in Hawaii, some natives decided to retrace the course of their ancestors. And so they built a ship, trying as best they could to select the identical woods and grasses, and even to build the sails the same way as their ancestors had. They didn't use the conventional modern methods of building. They did it just the way their ancestors would have had to do it. They selected their crew in such a way that only those who had the pride of this ancestry were accepted, with several exceptions. And then they set sail, and they decided that this had to be a retracing of the exact Polynesian voyage without compass, without instruments. And they had to feel the nature of the ocean and the nature of the wind and the nature of the stars. And then when they were somewhere within sight of birds, they would follow the birds, knowing the birds had to go back to land, and eventually they came to precisely the right place. They were following the signature of nature. There is a signature of God in all things if you're looking for it. When we say we want to follow the will of God, it isn't a cold will, a factual will, do this, do that, do the other thing. It's a rhythm. And that rhythm contains the signature. There is a rhythm in God, very different than just obeying a command. And if you are not capturing the rhythm and responding to it, then you are not walking in the will, because the will is expressed in the rhythm. This rhythm of God says to you certain things that are conveyed by instinct and intuition. It wants you to do certain things, and when you do not respond to that rhythm, you do not do those things. You stop at a human level. You say, this is my horizon. And you forget about God's unlimited horizon. And then you're out of the rhythm. The rhythm conveys itself in such a way that when you accept it and roll with it, just like the mariner picks those subtle, invisible flows that only a trained eye can see, then you'll discover that when you are moving in the rhythm, you're not moving with the tide. Sometimes you're moving against the tide. Sometimes you're moving in a certain way that you're not moving with time at all. You're not just flowing with the time any more than the mariner flows with the tide. You're making a selection, and you find sometimes you're completely counter to time, and then outside of time. And these subtle tides of time, the spiritual mariner begins to discern in such a way that you are accepting the invisible rhythm of God. To take it out of the mental rigidity, the arithmetical or mathematical mind that says 2 and 2 is 4, period, or the slide rule, or a computer. There is this infinite rhythm of God, and when you are in it, you know it, and you must obey it, or else you're stepping out of the living will. Now, where is that infinite rhythm of God? What does the Bible tell us about it? There is a great secret. A secret so vast that even in the Bible it's a secret. If you will go into the garden with Mary, you will begin to see where the secret is kept. And even when something is revealed, something is kept secret. Because the truth is too earth-shaking for man. Mary is in the garden. She's looking. She sees a man. She thinks it's a gardener. He speaks to her. Ask yourself, why does she not know that man? He's not a stranger. For 3 years, her whole life has been bound into his. Why does she not know him? Is he so different than he had been? We're not told that in specific words, that he looked so totally different she couldn't believe what she was seeing, but rather she suspected this was a gardener. It's as if your own son, who had lived with you all of his life, passed on, and 3 days later you looked at him and you said to yourself, who is that stranger? What could have happened to have made him so different? And yet there he was, appearing as a man, as a gardener. What was so different about him? Is there a mystery involved there? Do you discern the mystery? or even the nature of it? And it certainly was, because the same mystery continues. I'm looking at passage 20, chapter 20, verse 14 and 15 of John in the garden, after the crucifixion. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing, and knew not that it was Jesus. You would be looking at your own son and saying, who is he? And she was looking at the man who had changed her life and didn't know him. Why didn't they tell us he looked different? Why didn't they tell us that whereas once he was this way, now he was that way? What were they intentionally concealing from us? And why did John, who knew what he was concealing, why did he conceal it? Why was he so vague? We're going to find out. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, why weavest thou? Whom seekest thou? And she, supposing him to be the gardener, said unto him, Sir, if thou have borne him hence, tell me where thou hast laid him, and I will take him away. She still doesn't know, even after he speaks to her. Could you forget your son's voice? Why doesn't she know? Why can't she see? Why can't she hear? What's different? And it's very different because here again, in the same chapter, the 19th and 20th verses, then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus, and stood in the midst, and saith unto them, Peace be unto you. There he was. Did anybody know him? Let's see. And when he had so said, he showed unto them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw the Lord. But not until he showed them his hands and his side. He showed them where there had been nails. He showed them where the centurion had pierced his side. Why didn't they know him before that? He must have looked different. Go ahead to the 21st chapter, the 4th verse. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Not only had he reappeared to Mary, not only had he then reappeared to the disciples, but he reappears after the reappearances, and they still don't know him. Is John saying something? Your son says to you, Mother, and you say, Oh, my son. And then he goes away for a minute, comes back, and you say, Who is this stranger? Why, after reappearing, is he still unknown in his next reappearance to the very same disciples? Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? And they answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. In the 7th verse, following this, Therefore that disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. John had to tell Peter, that's the Lord. All of this strange mystery of not knowing who this is. And now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fish's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. His nakedness, of course, was his consciousness, unaware of the presence of Christ. Now keep with this theme for a minute, and we're going to have to go through a few of these to get to it. The other disciples came in a little ship. They were not far from land, and not far from land means that they were very close still to a material consciousness. So they come in a little ship. They're making the voyage over the mystic ocean of time, but it's a small voyage. They haven't progressed that far. You notice so far we have Peter and John. The two who had found the empty tomb. But, as it were, 200 cubits, dragging the net with fishes. The emphasis always on the fishes. They're multiplying the fishes. That means their soul is beginning to come alive within them. The fish being the soul. And the thoughts of the soul are now beginning to come forth, so their nets are full. Their soul is awakening to the presence of Christ among them. But they still can't recognize what's there. John had to tell Peter, this is the Lord. And then Peter was ready to walk into the water and commit himself. As soon then as they were come to land, they saw a fire of coals, and fish laid thereon, and bread. Again, the fish and the bread. And the fire of coals is to fry the fish, to broil the fish. What is John's mysticism? Bread, the first birth. Fish, the second birth. Bread, the birth into time. Fish, the rebirth out of time. The burning or frying or broiling of the fish is celestial fire lifting you into the rebirth out of time. Through the soul, which has been awakened to, like a net, to receive more fishes. He's pointing the way for mankind. You're looking at the signature of God, the will. Be ye reborn. But there is more. Jesus saith unto them, bring of the fish which ye have now caught. Your soul is open. Now live in it. Live in your soul. Simon Peter went up and drew the net to land full of great fishes, 153. He wasn't very advanced yet. 153. 1, 5, 3, 9. He hadn't yet reached the 10th level. And you know the 9th is the high spot of this world, the 4th day. The 10th is the first level of soul in the 5th day. He's coming into that, and all the fishes he's caught, 153, are telling you where Peter is. He's between the 9th and the 10th level of consciousness, which is between the 4th and the 5th day, between earth and heaven. He hasn't yet come into the new heaven. The first the beginning of the new heaven is symbolized by the 10. And that's why we're told he had caught 153 fishes. 10 is the first heaven, 11 the second, 12 is the third heaven, which is also called the seventh day in the Bible, when God rested. 12 is the healing consciousness of midnight, when there's neither day nor night, but only eternity. They're being lifted now from this 9th level to the 10th. Jesus saith unto them, Come and dine. And none of the disciples durst ask him, Who art thou? Knowing that it was the Lord. They knew, but they were afraid to say, Are you? Who art thou? They are still in doubt. And yet they think they know, but it's like you meet a stranger whom you're supposed to know, and you don't want to say, I don't remember your name, so you just stare, and that's what they're doing. In spite of all the strangeness that's happening. Jesus then come and taketh bread and giveth them, and fish likewise. This is now the third time that Jesus showed himself to his disciples after that he was risen from the dead. The signature of God was expressed there. This will probably be the first time we've ever talked about it together. And the reason for this detailed chronology of their not knowing his identity is because when you know why they didn't know his identity, you will know something that you have to do if you wish to obey the will of God. You're not always going to be a mortal being on this earth, are you? And science says you're evolving a certain way. But we see a new and different kind of evolution here. An evolution out of mortality is different than science has been talking about. Now, when you evolve out of mortality, out of humanhood, that's the end of being a member of the species called human. And therefore, you must enter a new species. This isn't something we anticipated doing. But we are underlining that it is the will of God. The signature of God invisible in the Bible is that we are being led into a new species. A species so strange that even the disciples could not recognize it. When you move out of mortality, if you move into transition to the 10th degree instead of 153, you will be a new species. Immortality is a new species, and it doesn't look like anything that anyone knows. Even in our innermost visions, when we see what we think we're seeing, we're not seeing the new species, we're seeing our concept of it. That is beyond your horizon, and you must go beyond your horizon. If you do not have a firm foothold in truth, divine truth, you will be frightened. If you have, you will be expectant. You will say, when I move outside of time, I will be prepared to be a new species and yet not be startled by it. I will have to be that one that the disciples were looking at. And I might have to come back and say, put your hand in my side and here are my hands. I'm really the same one, And I'm giving you a visible self so you'll have something to cling to, but I'm not really even the self you're putting your hands into in the side, or feeling the hands of me, or trying to verify that I am the identical one. That's still a concept. And get the picture now. The invisible becomes a visible human species, a human illusion, and leads the disciples now into the invisible, and makes that illusion a little different, a little lesser mortal, but enough so they can still recognize him. But that's not the end. Because, Jesus isn't going to continue walking in the invisible with a hole in his side and nail holes in his hands. But he's taking them from the visible, gently led them into the invisible, showing them still a form so they can get the feel of this is the Lord. But what's the next step? They're going to have to learn to live with the invisible Christ. I go away. If I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. You are being led slowly into the invisible of your own new self, the new species of the fifth world. And it is never said that way in the Bible, because unfortunately the world isn't ready to talk in the terms of being a new species. We want to hold on to this one. Not only the flesh, but I want to be a person. Unless, of course, I can be an angel, I'll take that. But I want to be something concrete. I don't want to be something I don't understand or know. And that's the glory and beauty of the adventure, to go into the unknown of your new species without knowing where you're going. And that's why trust is being built on this side of the veil, because there's going to be a long period of trust. Now, do you have the feeling that you can accept that something is going to happen to you that you don't know about, but that you trust what's happening to be the will of God? Are you standing in the way of that evolution from this species to that species? Remember, he did say you must hate your life in this world to find it. You must lose your life to find it. You must lose your species to find your new self. The new man is nothing like this man. And even the word man, as we know it, has no meaning in the fifth world. Now, if you can build within you this trust, this confidence, this willingness, and eventually this eager expectancy to evolve out of this species into that species, even before you make the physical transition, then you are being reborn of the Spirit. Now that's an adventure. And that is why we've been told for so many years, don't cling. Leave your nets. Cast your nets on the other side of the ship. Turn the other cheek. Always to loosen us, to release us from the attachment to this world. Now, you see how we stand in the way of that rhythm, that invisible signature of God, when we're concerned about this detail in this world or that detail, or things that to us is so vital, instead of our own spiritual evolution. Can you accept that this is the rhythm of God? This spiritual evolution into the new immortal species is the invisible rhythm of God that we learn to flow with. It's not the same as the world, which just thinks in terms of dying and going to a future heaven. It's totally different. It's so magnificent it leaves you speechless as you dwell with it. And then suddenly you realize, if that's God's plan for me, why, all I've got to do is flow with it. How can it fail? That trip to Spain next year, or to wherever you were going, what is that compared to the inner journey into new species? That's the adventure. That's why we have to get out of time. I don't know about you, but I have felt Joel's presence very strongly and very specifically. So specifically that without realizing it, I tucked a copy of The Infinite Way in my briefcase to come here and haven't even used it until last night. The only thing I took out of it before I started from home was the statement on page 191. If you see it in time or space, don't value it at its appearance, but look again through your soul. And then at the last minute something said, tuck this in your briefcase, and I did. And so now, apparently Joel wants me to call to everyone's attention certain things he said, which we read, and they're all in the chapter New Horizon. He picked Columbus Day to make us think about new horizons. But new horizons outside time. And maybe we didn't notice it before, but that's what he was stressing. These that I'm going to discuss with you are all selections from page 192 to 195, roughly, in the chapter New Horizons. And they are all tied in, without saying it, with your transition, your transformation from man of earth to Son of God, which in itself is a misnomer because it's your transformation in consciousness from the belief that you are man of earth to the realization that you already are Son of God. That's the transformation in consciousness we are to go through, because that is the rhythm, the signature, the will of God. To come into the realization of, you are my son now. And so here's the tides of time, and you are a mariner, and you're saying, time is going the wrong way for me, and I've got to get through time. And you do. You walk over the ocean of time. Or you swim through the ocean of time. But you consciously go in a different rhythm. You go in the divine rhythm which is outside time. You let it take you. Now, if you haven't heard these words with the idea of stepping out of time before, they may have a new significance for you. A universal illusion binds us to earth, to temporal conditions. And that means to conditions in passing time. And here's Joel telling us that the illusion of passing time is where we're bound. Most of us never read it that way. We read it as if we're bound to a material illusion, which is what he's saying. But he uses the word temporal. And many of us have thought of that as, well, temporary, never seeing the depth of the meaning of temporary, that beside temporary there's something else here now. Beside the temporal, what is here? The eternal is here. And while we are bound to the universal illusion of passing conditions, the eternal is present, and we need not be bound. We have to find those subtle currents that are not in time, that invisible rhythm, to feel our own divine selfhood. Realize this. Understand this, because only through this understanding can we begin to lessen its hold upon us. Now, when we originally read that, we said only through this understanding, and we said, yes, it's an illusion. We agree. We understand, Joel, it's an illusion. And that's often just about as deep as we got into agreeing with him. We understand, Joel, you're telling us it's all an illusion. And then, that's what we tried to remember, it's an illusion. But we weren't able to hold that because certain things in the illusion took control of us. We are now isolating one aspect of the illusion, is that it cannot exist unless it has passing time underneath it. Passing time is that which holds the illusion together. You see how it gives us a sequence? And everything in that sequence seems so right. And we get used to that sequence in time. And the illusion is built on our getting used to that sequence. When something goes wrong in that sequence, we're horrified. We want to restore it. We want to get back into the rhythm of passing time. We're used to it. And the rhythm outside time is simultaneity, not sequence. We're all over, everywhere, it is all happening, all alive now. In yourself. The passing time sequence is not there. The logic of one fitting right after the other and dovetailing so beautiful is not there. It's all happening now. All of God is now. Joel was trying to get us out of time. The first glimpse into the heaven of here, the heaven of now, is the beginning of the ascension for us. He was taking us out of theology. Now, passing time doesn't show you heaven here or heaven now. But the first glimpse that there is a heaven here and now is the first step in ascension. Ascension out of this species called mortality. Out of humanhood. Now, only those who have not caught the rhythm of God are striving basically to make their humanhood better and perfect as the main objective of their lives. And in so doing, in trying to make the conditions of their humanhood better, they are doing the logical mind thing and overlooking that there is a higher way. Like I said, it looks as if, why don't you hit the nail with the hammer? Why do you do it a different way? Well, we're saying that there's no nail to hit with a hammer. The nail is already in. That the perfection is already established, and all you've got to do is ascend to the level where the perfection is, rather than improve the imperfect level. This ascension is understood now as a rising above the conditions and experience of this world. Not solving the conditions of this world, but rising above the conditions of this world. Now, where can you go? What is this above? We're not going to climb a tree or take a plane. We're going above a higher level of our being. That higher level is the soul level. The soul level is going to show us how to ascend out of this level. And if you're saying you're not ready for that ascension, then you're not ready for the infinite way. Because that's what it is, ascension out of this level into a higher level. It's ascension out of good humanhood and bad humanhood. It's ascension into immortality now. And that's the new species which our scientific friends are not aware of. And because the world is not aware of it, the world is not moving in the rhythm of God and is losing the power of God, for the power of God functions in the rhythm of God. To love God supremely is to trust the rhythm of God, the purpose of God, the capacity of God to fulfill that purpose. And ultimately the capacity to know that purpose is fulfilled. All we have to do is ascend to where the purpose is functioning in our consciousness. Joel wants us to know that we must ascend from this level of humanhood, of even good humanhood. It is the will of the Father that we ascend into immortality as spiritual being here and now before transition. To leave your nets is the same as saying, don't put your emphasis and your focus even on success in this world. Lazarus did pretty good. He wasn't a poor man, but his focus was not on success in this world. His focus was on ascension above the good, successful, wealthy Lazarus that he was. When he emerged into his self from his humanhood, he hadn't lost a thing. He gained the kingdom when he gained his soul. Again, the Master showing us that he did not want the world in time, was telling us to rise above the world in time, out of the mortal species. And at once this would have frightened us. But now, it's the promise. Be ye reborn. Everything is leading us to that awareness which permits us to want more than anything else to be reborn into immortality. Even though we can't see what it is, we don't know what it looks like any more than the disciples did when it stood in front of them. And yet it says, follow me. And they follow. And it says, ascend, and we say, how? I want to ascend. How? Be still. First, accept Christ within. Christ within has no problem. Turn every problem over to Christ within. Every problem. Don't hold a few outside that you have to solve. Christ within is the Savior. Christ within you must mean that you're fairly large to contain Christ. How do you contain Christ within you? Is there you and Christ? Let's go to our soul. Is Christ within our soul, or we're getting warmer? We'll have to find Christ within you, and you are at this point a living soul. Within your living soul is Christ. But what is Christ saying to your soul? Follow me. Christ is saying, even to your soul, come higher. Now that's where your consciousness should be. And we can go there instantly. just by stepping out of human thought. The minute I step out of thought, there's nothing left here of a human nature. If I can't know with thought that I'm human, then there's no human here. In the absence of thought, I'm beginning to fry that fish. I put it on the broiler. The charcoal is beginning to get warm. You are going to the fish, not to the bread. In you is Christ. In you is the broiler. You dwell there as the invisible self, and then the celestial fires begin to broil the fish. That is how you ascend. The ocean has no way to withstand the celestial fire. The ocean of time is being burned away. It is evaporating. And when it does, heaven is where you are. The ocean of time is not there. Heaven is. Ascension inside is the inner journey, and to ascend inside we leave all the problems of the world and we say to ourselves, where I belong, where I live, in reality, there are no problems. I'm not going to worry about problems outside of reality. There are no problems in reality. But will I have to go back into that world and face those problems? Yes, if you go back into the world without the knowledge of who you are and where you are, without the experience of the invisible spirit, you'll always think you're going back into a world. But with the experience of it, you will learn that you can trust the invisible nature of your own being to dispense with the so-called problems without giving it a second thought. The miracle of celestial fire accepted within yourself dissolves the ocean of time where the problems are. Don't look for the logic of it. You'll never find it. It takes faith to leave the problem and dwell within your own being. And that dwelling within is the step toward ascension. Ascension out of all that is unlike the Father. All these symbols in the Bible are taking us on this inner adventure, beyond the horizons of the mind which see the problems within the boundaries of the mind. We're getting on that inner ship and we're sailing away into reality. It's very real. It's not a game. It's not an escape. It's an escape from unreality. We're following Joel's words. This ascension is understood now as a rising above the conditions and experiences of this world. And as we do this, as time is evaporated, as the concept of time loses its magnetism and cannot enter our unconscious thought, I'm interpolating those words, we behold the many mansions prepared for us in spiritual consciousness, in the awareness of reality. Now, this isn't something you can make happen, but you can prepare the stage for it to happen. It isn't a minute or an hour. It's a way of life. And Joel is assuring us that this way of life leads to the awareness of reality. Now, it's so strange to be told that you have to do all this to find reality, when for so many years we thought this was reality. And it isn't reality at all. It's this little 5 cents thing, thinking time is going by, and after doing that for a few hundred incarnations, what else could you think? Can you think of a better way to become hypnotized? Somebody who knows how can take 3 minutes and hypnotize you, and here we've been doing it for millions of years, saying time is going by. We've been living in one little solar system, and because there's a sun up there, and a moon and stars and constellations, this to us has been our world. It's not even a minute in the eternal day. And if we get behind the sun, outside of this little area called the world, even if we thought of it as external for a moment and got outside of it, why, we'd be wondering why those mortals down there think these are days. What is a day? This is the eternal where we live. There's no such thing as a day would be like a second hand on your watch when you're living in the eternal, and even that second hand would be a sort of a joke. When you're living in your soul, that's where you are. You're in the eternal. And then the illusion of passing time, a day here and a day there, a sequence of days, that's a little joke, probably a nursery rhyme for a soul looking down here, just to have fun. But it should be that way with us, so that we are free of this illusion of the day, and only what the day presents to us. We're slicing our infinite pie down to a crumb, and we're reversing it. And it's going to take a doing and a doing and a doing until you get this rhythm. Because it is the will of your Father that you be reborn out of the old rhythm, the old driving necessities of I've got to do this today and that tomorrow, and I've got to change this situation and that situation. Surely in the passing day, this is what it looks like to us. But that isn't what it looks like when you ascend above the illusion of the passing day and stand in the invisible reality now. Again, Joel is taking us into the infinite now. The reality that is not confined to our little section of the mental universe. I think he may get a little more specific. Maybe not in this one. But anyway, above the sense life. Above the sense life. The sense life tells us this is today. This is this minute. And the only things we have are what? We have this minute. Or some things we left in the last minute that we presume are still here. And all those things we want in the next minute that we're hoping to get. And here above us all, outside of this level, all that we want is heaven here now. The invisible kingdom. Now we could stay in this little dabbling illusion many more incarnations. Or we could make the momentary sacrifice of laying down our mortal sense and just kind of expect that all that we have will stay with us, and a lot more will be added of a different nature, that our works will become permanent works, not passing works. And you'll find that you have the capacity in yourself to do works of a permanent nature. That everything you do in spirit is going to be permanent, whereas everything you do in the flesh is temporary. By their deeds ye shall know them is the mystical way of saying that when they're doing permanent deeds, they are honoring God supremely. When they're doing temporary deeds, they haven't yet discovered the nature of God. But you see how it is all presented to you, not as a judgment of you, not in criticism, but with a love so complete that it wants you to find yourself so totally that it is willing to overlook 70 times 7 and 70 times 7 again every so-called mistake you might ever make. And the reason it wants you to be perfect is because it is you.